Well, thank you, Tess and Annika. Good evening to everyone. I should start off by saying that this is just ridiculous. The idea that Nassau Weekly could be 40 years old still just does not compute for me. My mental image of the paper was born in the faint hope that Nassau might make it through one semester, maybe if we were very lucky through 1 year. The idea that it might survive for generations was one we just never remotely allowed ourselves to consider. But it is really very, very cool. And I am grateful to you and all of your predecessors for forging ahead, for reshaping and rekindling this project to keep it a fresh, spunky, insistently provocative and brave voice on a campus too often given to complacency and conformity. Nassau was born out of frustration with the status quo. Nassau was the creation of a handful of members of the University Press Club. We were a group of students who wrote a ton about Princeton, but in that pre-internet age, hardly any of the reporting we did was read on campus. We wrote for newspapers in New York, Philadelphia, and around New Jersey, covering Princeton stories for an audience far from campus. So we were looking to build an on-campus outlet for the work we were already doing. But far more than that, we were looking to use whatever journalism chops we had to do what the Daily Princetonian did not do. In that era, the Prince did not write features, did not go beyond game stories in their sports section, didn't really cover the arts or culture in any thoughtful way, and didn't cover the social life of the campus. In short, it was a very staid, dull newspaper with an almost exclusive emphasis on campus politics. So we saw this huge opening and we aimed to fill it. Our first attempt was a complete and utter failure. It was called Friday, and it lasted exactly one issue. That was the plan from the start. We would do one sample issue at the end of the spring term in 1979 to serve as an example of what an alternative campus weekly might look like. We spent a month or more designing, reporting, writing, and publishing that one issue. And then we had zero plan for how to resume publication the next fall. We had no business model, no business manager, no business acumen. We were a bunch of writers who wanted to put out a paper, and that was it. Friday was born, and before the next Friday rolled around, Friday died. I have a copy of it. I looked at it, and the stories are not bad. We profiled the leader of the campus anti-apartheid movement. We examined the tendency of women to enroll in traditionally female majors. Josh Kornbluth wrote a Dadaist analysis of a food fight in Commons. We reviewed a new album by a new artist, Elvis Costello, and we took readers on a road trip to Asbury Park. The paper looked like a total mess, and hardly anyone knew it even existed. That summer, we decided to give it another go. This time, we set out to find people who could do all the things that no one in Press Club knew how to do. So we found a designer. I asked the admissions office if there were any students who had any background in print at all, in print design. And they pointed me toward a freshman who had a passion for design. And Scott Oren was thrilled when I called him up and asked if he'd like to design a paper from scratch. That original design for Nassau was a bit heavy on what People magazine then looked like. But hey, that was the most successful startup of the time, so a bit of imitation was a compliment of sorts. Next, we needed money, a printer, a distribution plan, an advertising strategy, and we had absolutely no clue. So we first needed a business manager. And here's how naive we were. I figured the only way we could find someone who knew how to raise money would be to find someone really, really rich. And then maybe also some not so rich kid who wanted desperately to make money. So Bob Fagan, my friend from high school who joined our effort that summer, and we literally paged through our collection of freshman heralds. This was the orange paperback face directory that the university put out every fall with snapshots of the incoming freshmen. It was the original Facebook. We found a guy who was both a Rockefeller and a Carnegie. I cold called him, and I offered him the job of business manager. His name was Andrew Carnegie Rose, and he was the son of two of America's most fabulous fortunes. He said yes, and best of all, he had a car, which meant that we had at least some possibility of getting our pages to the printer each week. At least we did until week 3, when Andrew wrapped his car around a tree. But not to worry, he was a Carnegie and a Rockefeller. He got a new car. just like he got, courtesy of his father, an $800 phone answering machine, which we were pretty certain was the first answering machine on campus. Andrew was totally into the idea of building a new fortune. He was not, however, terribly interested in taking any time to do so. So we needed someone who was hungry, and we found David Bookbinder, a scrappy New Yorker who was eager to create something from scratch and loved the challenge of starting from nothing. He found us a newfangled typesetting computer and leased it for a song. It was the size of a small Kia sedan, and it made all sorts of mystical whirring noises as we typed stories into it. It magically spit out camera-ready copy, a miracle of technology. He also found us university-owned space at the top of Holder Tower. We got a sprawling suite of offices that was vastly larger than we needed. And he found us a printer. So we were off with great editors and writers such as Alex Wolff, David Remnick, Lisa Belkin, and Rick Brody. We had some beautiful stories, such as Lisa's elegiac profile of the conductors who drove the dinky to and fro between Princeton and Princeton Junction. We launched a Princeton tradition with Verbatim, the weekly collection of overheard quotes from students and faculty. We hit the competition hard from the start with Prince Watch, which was our feature that tracked the flaws and foibles of the campus daily. And we delivered investigative pieces, such as one documenting the incestuous relationships between Prince editors, the student government, and one eating club. Another investigation revealed how and why the Princeton Borough Police conducted drug raids on campus every year on the same day. It was the chief's wedding anniversary. And we reported on anti-Semitism in bicker choices at the selective eating clubs, and we named names. 30 years after that story was published, I was having lunch with a friend who was a TV writer in Los Angeles. And by chance, a classmate who had become chief executive of a big TV network walked into the restaurant. We hadn't spoken since that story about anti-Semitism on Prospect Street came out, naming him in a very tough way. He walked up to me 30 years later, cursed me out, and walked away. Journalism works. Our recipe for Nassau was tough investigative reporting, insightful cultural criticism, commentary, illuminating essays, and a snarky but useful guide to living on campus. We published a meaty guide to the art of picking a gut course, even as the administration insisted there was no such thing. We wanted to be irreverent, funny, and smart. Too often we were probably just smart alecky and pesky. But we definitely got under the skin of the prince, the administration, and the faculty, and that was good enough for us. Well, Nassau has obviously evolved quite dramatically through the years. Our emphasis on reporting was for many years replaced with a more literary focus, and the paper was way ahead of its time in putting the commentary, memoir, and essay forms at the center of its work. But the central personality of the paper really did endure to be tough, experimental, unafraid of big ideas, committed to rocking the boat and pushing the envelope, undeterred by the fact that pretty much no one ever knew how to make money or really cared much about how to assure the paper's survival. I think it's fair to give Nassau credit for a 20-year-long revival of The Prince, which reacted to our launch by finally starting to do what they should have done years earlier. They added a features section, boosted their arts coverage, focused more on original reporting, and put greater emphasis on good writing. Of course, they still sucked. Through the years, the NAS has had its ups and downs, and more than its share of near-death experiences. But it has lived on because its original purpose remains perhaps more needed than ever before. The campus is in desperate need of a fearless voice that pushes back against the easy orthodoxies of thinking. In a time when people of various political stripes seem to enjoy limiting the speech of others, a college campus needs a place that will boldly publish dissenting views, that will give space to unpopular ideas and examine why people believe what they believe. A traditional print paper remains a really effective way to do that, not because print is superior to digital journalism, but because print has become the exception, a marker that something might be worth settling into rather than skimming past. Print helps create community in a lasting way, something that digital journalism too often struggles to do just because it's so easy, so limitless in its space and volume. In an enclosed community like Princeton, a print paper offers a freedom to be just among ourselves in a way that the boundless online world does not. I know Nassau has faced and is facing troubled times, as are many other campus publications. I run the board at the Alumni Weekly, and we're struggling with how best to keep that magazine going in ways that are vital and meaningful. And I know WPRB is searching for its own next identity and business model. In the end, the format and how you go about being profitable are important, because no money, no paper. That's a lesson we learned very early in Nassau's existence. But those factors can never be your number one concern. It has to be the content, stupid, as the best editors always remind us. You have a mission that's more vital than ever before: to keep a rich and nuanced and boldly brave campus conversation going, even when many people only want to hear what they already agree with. In this world of tightly siloed information ghettos, you have a chance and a duty to break people out into a dangerous world of conflicting ideas and daring proposals. You have an obligation to discover what's happening, to document it, and to call it out. You have a chance to move us all out of this divided yet frightened culture by exposing us to unpopular and unsettling facts and ideas. I trust you will dedicate yourselves to that work. I know you will. 40 years of Nassau prove that you will. Thanks very much.